Welcome to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1, Mike King Biz Radio Network. I'm here today with Mike King. We're doing something unconventional, but we're going to have fun with it. America's Healthiest City is a 10-year initiative and community partnership to make Richmond the healthiest region in America by 2033. If you represent a business, a nonprofit, an academic institution, or a government agency in any of the jurisdictions in Greater Richmond, and we encourage you to visit americashealthiestcity.com to check out what it means to become an ambassador. We can only do it if we move together, so please check that out. For everybody else, please check out the ideas board at americashealthiestcity.com. Submit your ideas, leave comments, find out how you can get involved. We're going to do it together. So, Mike, thanks for agreeing to be interviewed
Thanks
today.
for having me.
I know you like to talk.
No, I don't. This is very good being over here.
So the unconvention today is not that you're on your own show. That's fun stuff, and everybody's used to hearing you. But what I'm going to do today is, so I've been tasked as a part of the Leadership Metro Richmond Quest, Reimagining Quest leadership program for the next 10 years. I have to interview a number of leaders in the community to understand better how we need to think of training future leaders so that we can be effective and move the needle. So for those of you who haven't come in contact with or aren't familiar with Leadership Metro Richmond, check out lmronline.org, lmronline.org. It is a 40-year-old leadership program that really does a lot of great things to inform the community, but train about 70 really awesome leaders a year to go out into the community and use new skills and knowledge to move the needle. So I'm going to just dive into it and ask you the very first question, which is, what are the most important regional issues that community leaders must understand deeply if we're going to actually make a difference, in your opinion?
I think the idea of community business, nonprofit community partnerships is something that's very vital. When people come here, a lot of times they really are amazed with the collaboration between the business community and the nonprofit community aspect of what goes on. Because in reality, what happens is the community nonprofit organizations are the glue that helps society with all the things that the government can't do, or organizations. So they step in and really fill a void and offer that. But businesses are the backbone to really give them the opportunity to shine.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've observed is that businesses have the ability to dig their heels in a little bit when other folks won't necessarily budge. I don't know if you have seen that firsthand, or if you have some examples of folks out there that you've seen really dig their heels in. I certainly don't have a board of directors that I have to answer to, so I can say things that other folks can't. But
I remember really quickly, after 2 or 3 years ago with Danielle Fitzhugh in the Chesterfield Chamber, we're talking about their board tasked them as to the importance of the DEI aspect and what we need to do to be successful. And sometimes you get people pushing back on different ideas, but in reality, sometimes somebody has to take a stand, whether that's management, whether that's a board of directors. If you feel a certain way about an opportunity, sometimes you have to dig in and say, we're going at maybe that's a tough part of leadership. It says, you may have to take the unpopular position because you have a long-term goal, a long-term vision of what you want this organization to be.
So as you think about, you talked to a lot of business leaders and the people that are making a difference. They're doing it because they're driven by passion and mission. What are some of the things that you see people showing up for? Like, what are the things that we need the most to fix in this community?
I think one of the things we're looking at, whether it's a joblessness or homelessness, it's the people aspect. And that's one thing you touched on with the healthiest city. Richmond is on a top list of a lot of organizations. If we're in the top 40 of destinations to visit worldwide, I think Richmond is 37, 38. Paris is 33, 34. That says that there's a lot going on here. And some of the times sometimes there can really be a gap between the haves and the have-nots. Whole societies, good societies, make sure that everyone is taken care of, at least to some point. And I think that's what the business community here does, which is takes care of the undercurrent, the people who are not, I guess, that well off, that they are able to have certain services, whether they have certain opportunities that they may not have if we do not have a strong business community here.
Yeah, one of the things that I know is invested in pretty heavily and is always looking for new opportunities is workforce development. Between the various chambers of commerce here that are pushing on that, and the universities and the government agencies, I feel like getting people to stay here when they finish college is a big deal, because we have tens of thousands of students that go to school here, and what I learned, and this is through Chamber RBA, is a lot of them don't leave campus. They live in this big
They
city
never
and they don't
do.
leave campus.
And one of what areas always deal with a lot of times are the brain drain. People finish and they leave. It's funny because before I came here, we lived at Penn State, and in State College, the students stayed right on campus. If you went 10 minutes away from campus, they didn't know what was out there. You think that in a rural school, but a lot of times when you think about that at a VCU, a person doesn't leave campus. They do not leave that area. They don't know all the things that the town has to offer to help them stay. That's why VCU is really tied to being in the community, to let the students know there's great opportunity here. And sometimes that's a winning aspect, because you don't have to go, and on top of you built your infrastructure of knowing who the players are, who are in the marketplace, who can help determine your future.
So you have a lot of folks who, I mean, everybody who's on your show is a leader. So you hear a lot of things. You know people that are in leadership development, and who are on your show, Chris Mayfield being one of them. You listen into all these conversations, and so I'm curious what your thoughts are on trends in leadership development training. I think you're potentially looking at one. You've been through leadership development training yourself. So why don't you talk about your experience in leadership development training, and what are you hearing today that people are leaning into?
I think more than anything, more than ever. So as I give a shout out to Leadership York. Oh, that is in Pennsylvania, class of 2000, best class ever. Every class is going to say that, because the leadership aspect, it teaches you how to be a good servant leader, and organizations need help. Everyone knows those big organizations, the Feed Moores, the Massey Cancers, all those big name organizations, American Cancer, whatever that is. It's the smaller organization that has 2 people, 27 volunteers, like we're doing with American, the housing. What's it? Housing Family First.
Yeah.
They're trying to change the world with the few people that they have and a board of directors. When you go into something and you offer some leadership you offer the help that you're helping be on the board, that's a difference maker. Where do those people come from? Leadership programs where you learn how to be an effective leader. Effective leadership. Now, some of the trends we're seeing, people are leaning more into employee engagement. We're not in the business of technology anymore. We're not in the business of manufacturing. In reality, you're in the business of people development. Great people stay for great organizations, and they move around till they find one, and then they stick and stay. They learn what they can. It's a mutual benefit. And then they move on, start to own whatever it is, but both of you gain from their time there.
Yeah, I think there's a joke or a quote that I heard. The CFO comes into the room and says, "Well, what if we train all these people and they leave?" And the CEO says, "Well, what if we don't and they stay?"
What type of organization do we have?
Yeah. Well, I think we could always do more in training people to be leaders. I think there's Mark Miller wrote a series of books. He comes out of Chick-fil-A, and I actually became privy to his book series from an employee that came to work from us from Chick-fil-A. But the entire series of books talks about developing everybody in your organization as a leader, to give them a sense of ownership over what they're doing and actually have an impact in the organization.
Because if you think about it, in an organization where, if it's not that well run, the sales department, they know what they do. The technical people, they know what they do. Everyone else knows. Everyone doesn't know the story. When you go to Chick-fil-A, it's like from top to bottom, everyone understands the playbook. Everyone knows what the meaning of them being there is, what the ultimate goal is to make it an experience that is like any other, to the point where people don't worry about what the price of it is. They don't. Because you've gotten past the price aspect. You're just going there because it's an experience. And you learn that, and you do that because of how things are run. It's the corporate culture.
Yeah, and somehow they've figured out a way to get me to crave Chick-fil-A only on Sundays. I never wanted any other day of the week. I don't know if that's fine.
And that the thing is, and you look at that and you're like, okay, here's Chick-fil-A across the street from another fast food place. Other places empty, the line going down at Chick-fil-A, it's crazy because of what they've manufactured, what they've brought to the marketplace, that they're different than everyone else.
I actually read I don't know if it's a statistic or just a truth that if Chick-fil-A opens up another Chick-fil-A a block down the street, it will be just as busy as the first Chick-fil-A.
I know that's a fact. And you know how that is? Because there is one in Willow Lawn inside the mall. It was there. It was crazy packed. It was boom, business is booming. They built one across Broad Street. You could throw a rock from one to the other. Both of them are just as busy as ever.
This is America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1. This is the Mike King Biz Radio Network. I don't need to tell you that. You're looking at the man and listening to the man here today. We're doing a different type of show today. We're asking Mike questions about leadership so that I can fulfill my obligation on the committee, Reimagining Quest for Leadership Metro Richmond Quest Leadership Program, which basically there's a committee of folks that have graduated from the class. I'm class of 2020, best class ever.
There you go. I hear you.
And so we're coming together. We're interviewing leaders in the community to understand what do we need to do to improve the program and really set the stage for leadership in the next 10 years. So we've got a couple more questions here. And the next one up is what do community leaders need in order to be impactful or successful in our region?
I think one of the things that community leaders need is support and also knowing other change makers. That says, my dad always says, it doesn't matter who you know, it's who knows you. And people now know Will Melton. And, you know, and that's a big thing. You look at how in a short amount of time, your idea with the water was an idea conversation a while back. A what if? That's turned into reality. Think of all the people that you know that if a person in the community has an issue, you go right to your phone and you can get to the person who can say yes, who can make a change. We all know, you know, a number of people. It's when you know the right people.
It's when the right people know you.
That's true. Because when they answer, because the one you had their number and you could just give them a call, which cuts out a lot of the, I'll have my person get to your person. And in the meantime, maybe someone's in need of help immediately, or you're able to help an organization out. And that's what you're doing now. So it's like you ended up with tickets from the Squirrels last year. You're determined that you're not going to end up with tickets this year. So what does that mean? Letting people know that you could help the community even more.
Yeah. Well, I like that thought process. And one of the things that certainly hope to do with America's Healthiest City is create that space for connection between those change makers. And I think another thing that's really important is that, this community has suffered, unfortunately, from a lot of initiatives and things that have been tried that, either was not strong enough leadership or just not enough will in the community to really adopt them. And we want to prove to the community that, first and foremost, you have to believe it's possible if you're going to go there. And so we hope to be able to show folks that there are people in the community who are working toward this. But to what you said about change makers having access to other change makers, I can tell you first and foremost, this program has elevated my profile in a tremendous way, and it's given me connections to other people. So thank you for that.
I got one
piece of it.
I got one better than that. When you sit here and I hear things, I really didn't know Plan RVA. I knew the parts, but you understand what that means. And you just talked about the initiatives. You were here a couple weeks ago with Jennifer Einhold, and she talked about change is messy. So we go through a lot of initiatives that don't work to get to one that does. And think about all those great initiatives when she says, hey, people who are not that creative, they want you to come with an idea rock solid. And change doesn't happen that way. You have an idea, it's messy. So when you bring it to me, I'm like, so how about this? So how about that? Those are all of the initiatives that didn't work before. Now all of a sudden, like, wow, this one worked. And all those times that we tried something, we've learned from it. Okay, we tweak it a little bit here, we tweak a little bit there. Maybe now's the time is right because we have all of the people in play who can help make this happen.
Well, to your point about the connectivity and the having cell phone numbers and whatnot, again, if people in the community that are not necessarily in a leadership position or listening in, I just want people to know that that does happen on a day-to-day basis. Those phone numbers are in people's, speed dials. They do make those calls. People do answer the phone, and real stuff does happen. And we hope to tell those stories through this program, but it's something that happens, every single day. I'll give you an example, and I'll give it a shout out to the Children's Hospital at VCU. I actually got a chance to tour there this morning as a member of the board at Chamber RVA, and we were in there with Parney and Brian Anderson and some other great folks. But we learned from Sherry Parkin, their new clinical director there, that they attempted a Healthy City initiative in Nashville at Vanderbilt, and they didn't succeed at the mission that they had wanted to go on. And so, in the tour, I made mention of, hey, we're trying to do it here. And there was keen interest there. So, this is, opening up conversation with leaders is a big part of it. And people do lean into those conversations. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Another one that we want to cover is, one of the things that happens a lot is we do, as leaders, connect with other leaders, and we spend a lot of time with other leaders, but then that sometimes means that we don't spend enough time with people that need to be served. And so the question here is, how can we best prepare community leaders to engage with others effectively?
You have to get to where the action is. And if you don't, coming from the military, we always joke and say, you don't ask the generals, the leadership, how things are going. Or a couple of weeks ago, when I talked to Gail Turner, he says, middle management is where great ideas go to die. Their job is to keep things moving steady. If you're just putting out policy and never seeing directly how that policy impacts people, it's not going to work. So you have to be available. You have to meet people who are at a place to be you're able to see the impact of what this is. So then that what policy we put in place, the things we're fighting for, all of a sudden make a difference. Because if not, you're just thinking what the community needs, as opposed to what it actually needs.
So example, case in point on that I want to point out, I don't know if you've seen this, but I've been out in the community and I've seen it in the media and I've seen it firsthand in the streets of Richmond, but our new acting police chief, Rick Edwards, is one of the people that's doing that, and he's doing a really good job at it.
One of the things, a lot of times, a lot of great ideas start. It's like politics. People talk about, people are bad in politics and people are ruined. I don't think people go into there with the idea that I'm going to do something wrong. They go in with the right idea, and then over the course of time, you get a little bit of course. You're off course a little bit. So it's great that he's doing that. What is going to happen is it needs to continue, because people are always leery, and everybody comes in, and it's like the 90-day, you're trying your best on a 90-day probation. You can only fool people so long, and then all of a sudden you see the real them, and it happens to pop out on a random Thursday, because they kept up the idea for a certain amount of time, and then they couldn't keep it up any longer. So it's a great thing that he's doing that, because one, he connects with the community and sees what the community needs. It's a job he took thinking that he knows what the community needs. Then he gets here, and he actually has to see what it is, and the people are going to tell him what needs to be done.
Well, he's doing it. There's a lot of good stuff happening there. A lot of good stuff happening everywhere, and we're going to have more guests that come on the show to share the stories of people who are open-minded, making change happen. I got a question for you. So you've been through leadership programs, been a little while, but what would you say for anybody that's maybe a new leader, or having completed a leadership program, or just looking to grow as a leader? What are some activities that folks can take to practice becoming a leader?
A lot of times, go where good leaders are, where you go, and like-minded people, birds of a feather, people are determined to go where the people are who are doing good, and you'll see other examples of that. Whether it is at the big level, whether it is the Virginia Council of CEOs, whether it's the training programs, go where leaders are and observe and talk to them about seeing what they're doing. You're going to find people who are ahead of you, and you can emulate some of what they do and take out what works for you. Then there are going to be people who are behind you. They may be coming with an energy of where what's happening today. Maybe I was trained in the 90s and I'm not as well versed as what's going on now. I need to see there are people out there who I take and listen to and follow and like the way that they do business. And there are people in this town who do that. And then you have to look at the younger people and who are coming along and saying, maybe we can do it that way. Old school says, no, because we've always done it that way. There's no reason that we can't do it this way. But those are younger folks. So a good leader has to listen and go and learn from people who've been down that road, but also keep in your crew some younger folks because they're bringing that energy that you have. They aren't as burdened by what's happened in the past.
So we're talking a lot about leadership programs for adults, and I'd be remiss to not cover youth leadership. And I don't know as much about leadership programs for youth, but I do know that our region, Henrico, Richmond, and Chesterfield put together Teen Summit a few weeks ago. We were out there. It was a really wonderful opportunity for us to listen to people, for young people to hear what's going on and to hear who's making a difference, but to engage and to share their voices. And I think we could always do a better job. One of the things that I see that you do a lot is you bring a lot of young people onto your show. Tell me a little bit about why you do that, and how do you see these people kind of stepping forward into the future to be the leaders of tomorrow?
One of the things is, so I was an only kid for a long time, almost 14 years. And so I didn't have that brother, sister thing. I came home with a wife, the baby. My sister was in the second grade. My parents always owned a business that people came through. And my dad was a version of Parney. The person everybody knew. He was when people would come into his business, he'd say, hold on a second, and he gets on. And a person appears, a problem is taken care of. Sometimes that's not just older people, because the younger people are taking and they're talking a different language. I'm giving people a platform. That's what this is right here. Give you a platform to tell your story, because your story, however bad maybe people think it is today, these are going to be the good old days for people in 2040 saying, you remember back in the day in 2019 when we may think, well, the pandemic is right here. It's fresh in our mind. Somebody may say, hey, I was a pandemic baby. And boy, after that, we did X, Y, and Z. So they're bringing an energy. They're also bringing some possibilities of what could be. Because we don't know. I mean, we didn't always have phones in our pockets and every question that was known to man. If your family had means, you had the Encyclopedia Britannica, the new book of knowledge. And if you really spent money, then they came with the update on a yearly basis. It's not the case anymore.
GPT's giving all
exactly. So here, all those things were a status symbol of the folks who made it and had it. And now in a phone, you get Chat GPT. And it's not, so everyone's worried about TikTok. We had a professor in yesterday, and she talked about the kids are on TikTok. We're looking for the people who are making the next TikTok, because somebody's thinking of something somewhere. If you think about the possibility that we would get into an Uber with cars and people we didn't know, are you ridiculous? I never would have had food and things delivered to my house. Now, you mean I don't have to go in the store and do that? Here we go.
Politics is all we believe, right? We believe first, and then
we do,
and it works. Well, thanks for chopping it up with me today. This was fun.
Oh yeah, well, I'm a guest. I don't know what happens now.
Well, what happens now is we wrap things up, but before we go, is there anything that you want to share with the audience as it pertains to leadership or anything else? Because I think we've got about 30 seconds.
30 seconds. One of the things is you can tell a person when people are a brand. And Will Melton is a brand. You're using the power of Exponent 21. I remember a couple of years back when you said you wanted to use this platform, not just to have a business that makes money, that we were over at Crossroads Arts Center, that you wanted to have a business that was a different business model. And you turn that into that America's Healthiest Cities. It's the water movement. And people are coming out saying, hey, what's this guy doing? So you've elevated your brand to make a difference. And now you're with the other, people out there who are really making a difference in the community and the lives of others.
Well, I really appreciate your partnership and your platform. It wouldn't be possible without it. For those of you who are listening in, please visit americashealthiestcity.com. Check out the Ideas Board, submit your ideas, consider becoming an ambassador. We're super excited to be here on ESPN Richmond 106.1, part of the Mike King Biz Radio Network. We'll see you next week at 6 a.m. on Thursday.
Can I drop in something really quickly?
Please, yeah.
Okay, so I always say, hey, make sure you take a listen to our sponsors and advertisers. People don't understand how this program works. And I say, most of the people who come here do not pay to be on the program. For the platform that we're using, I always say, please take a listen to our sponsors and advertisers. And I'm looking right at Will Melton right here, because he is a person who gets it, who understands, and that allows us to talk to everyone that we talk to. So congratulations, kudos, and thanks to you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks for what you do.
All righty. Thanks now.